The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work there, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sackheads. Sackheads.
Radio.
Sackheads. Sackheads.
Radio.
Sack. Sack. Sack.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
Into the silo.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Hey, welcome to the Sackheads Radio Show. It is just a sheer pleasure to be with you. It is the 25th of May, 2015. I'm your host, Sackhead Sean, sitting across from me.
Where?
The guy with the biggest nose in the room, Sackhead Clint. Thank you so much for being here, sir, as always.
Of course.
It is an absolute pleasure
To work with me. I know.
to work with you.
I know. And look, I appreciate the fact that you bring that up so much. You and I are such in sync tonight.
It's kind of weird.
We
right?
are so in sync.
This is how you know it's going to be a good show.
Right. So we started at dinner, like we always do, business dinner to kind of meet. And for those of you at the IRS who are listening, it is in fact a business dinner because we do conduct business at dinner. We had our business dinner, kind of meeting and prepping before the show like we do every week. And we both looking at said menu, in some cultures as they pronounce it, I heard. That might be inaccurate, but who knows? At any rate, it sounds very educated. So we're looking at the menu, and we both had chicken parm. And we look at each other, that's kind of weird.
Oh, it was weird that we'd even say that.
Yeah, okay, so we look, well, if you're going to order chicken parm, and then we both go, oh, or maybe the spaghetti and sausage.
Son of a...
At which point Sean literally threw his menu down and said, son of a...
son of a bitch.
In the middle of the restaurant.
Quite loud, as I usually do.
Right, in that Bostonian accent. In that East Coast ruckus, which is your person. Speaking of the East Coast ruckus, look, have you seen the news with the New York Fire Department and the New York Police Department?
You know, and we've talked.
Hang on. So for those of you that may not be aware, and we know this because we have friends in both industries, cops and firemen are like cats and dogs. They're like oil and water. They're not oil and water because they do have to come together and mix sometimes, but there is a friendly rivalry within that community. In some cases, apparently, it's not too friendly because in New York, New York Fire Department, New York PD, they were engaged in I think it was a charity football game.
Well, and here's the problem. Honestly, people went to see the NYPD and the FDNY fight, and a football game broke out. That's the big. Listen. Yeah,
no, this is hang on a second.
This is a true story.
This is a true story.
Even funnier.
This is a charity event.
Yep.
And people are there to watch, to let them see this charity football game or whatever. When all of a sudden a fight breaks out. And this is there was like a potential late hit. Somebody said that there
Doesn't matter. It's football.
a late hit, right? And so let me set the stage. The police department, the PD team was leading 29-13, of course. And
of course.
What?
Nothing. Go on.
Yeah. And so this is late in the fourth quarter, and the New York Fire Department's quarterback was tackled kind of near the New York the PD sideline. And the fire guys rush across the field after the play, which, by the way, there was no penalty called.
Okay, that's good.
They run across the field, the field, and then they start a big verbal confrontation.
Totally normal.
And then the fighting breaks out.
Well, yeah.
And the fire coach says, "Oh, they hit our quarterback out of bounds." That's how things got started. And there was no penalty, and even the official news reports said that it was tackled near the sideline. He wasn't hit out of bounds.
They were just whining they lost.
Yeah,
And it's okay.
right. No, it was no big deal. So this isn't the first time apparently that a charity game between the New York Fire Department and the New York Police Department has broken out. In 2014, there was a hockey game,
Yeah.
a charity hockey
I
game,
remember that one.
and the benches cleared during a big fight with that one. So,
Well, listen, shit happens.
yeah, right.
And it's part of football, and it's the competitiveness of the sport.
Right, and you get two like type A type jobs, right?
Yep.
And then it's obviously the competitive nature. Now that turned unfriendly, but there usually is that banter between the fire guys and the police guys or gals and peoples. So I thought that was a funny story. I thought that was an interesting
all
story.
for a good cause. Hey, listen.
Right, fight for a cause. Why not call it that?
You have boxing matches for charity all the time.
Right, why
you
not?
got both. They actually should have charged more for the tickets for the 2-to-1.
They should have. And fight for the cause.
Fight for the cause.
That's what the next.
What was important is the charity made money.
Right.
That's really the most important thing.
It really is. But so let's do this. Let's propose
Oh, no.
to the New York Fire Department and the New York Police Department that your next event is called Fight for the Cause.
Fight for the cause.
And you're guaranteeing that a fight is going to break out because you two evidently hate each other. I don't know. I'm just guessing based upon all these fights. And hang on, I want to talk for a minute to the fire guys. No, I'm going to help them out.
Oh, no.
No, listen. Hey, look, fire guys. So
Hey, fire guys.
yeah, I'm going to help you guys out. Look, if you know these events are going to break out into a fight, first of all, these are cops. I mean, the street fighting is kind of what they do.
Right.
Right? Don't challenge them to hockey or to football. Challenge them to like a ladder climbing contest.
Ooh, Barker Lounger sitting.
Right? Or like a chili cook-off.
Ooh, that's a good one, too.
That's a good chili cook-off for charity. Right? Something like that. Pull-ups. I don't care. Right? Like do something like that. Now let me talk to the cops for a second. Hey cops. Is it really a challenge to beat up on fire guys in a street fight?
No.
Right? So you know they climb ladders.
Right.
They rescue cats. And they get girls. And I understand that you're jealous because the fire guys get all the girls. Because everybody loves the fire guys. Don't be mad at them. Embrace them.
Fight fire with fire.
Right. So now I want to talk to both sides. Get along. This is a charity event. You guys work together. Right? Like if seriously, if there's a house on fire, the fire guys have the balls to go in and handle business. And cops, you get to hang out outside. I'm sorry. Right? And when somebody's shooting at people, hey, cops, you get to go in and handle business because you guys have balls. The fire guys get to wait until everything, oh, yeah, we'll just wait out here until everything's fine. All right? Just bring it together, folks. Have a little sackhead love.
Well, of course, Jersey Joe, our resident firefighter at
Right.
SHR Media, is immediately, because we have so many fires here that we need a firefighter on staff all the time.
Right.
Is immediately
Because everything we do is putting out fires.
Right.
One's about to be put out right now.
And you know how many fires I actually have Joe put out for us on a regular basis? So,
Right.
it is.
Joe, please don't get your feelers hurt. This is satire.
All he's saying is just have the police department put down the donuts and stop fighting.
And this is true. Listen, this is another issue. How many cop friends have we talked to? This
30,
is the issue,
40,
right?
50.
Because look, fire guys are eating chili, right? They're
Tri-tip.
eating prime rib. They're eating tri-tip.
Right.
Those guys can cook. What are the cops eating? They're drinking coffee out of a styrofoam cup and eating donuts and stale bagels. I mean, I'd be upset too.
You have a reason why they get angry.
Right. Oh, they get to cook and they get the girls.
But
hey,
you know
look,
what
I get
love about New York, and I've read all over this place, and this is how you know it's back east, where things are a little bit more sane on some levels. Some levels, not all levels.
Right.
There was no investigation done.
No.
There's no inquiry. Each department's not talking about how they're going to suspend the... You get that in the NFL.
Oh,
over
yeah.
a fight, right?
Yeah. There was, yes.
Oh, the
There's no
quarterback
public
is-
outcry.
Right? Nothing.
Public outcry is like, that's what
You
our
had-
cops and fire guys do.
You had two groups of guys that are type A personalities who save lives for a living,
Right.
who are competitive by nature.
Who probably had a beer afterwards together.
All together.
Yeah.
Absolutely all together.
Yep.
And you know what? I love to see that. It's even with the fight, it's good that they're raising money for charity and using their notoriety to help those who are in need. Continue, even in their own time, not getting paid to.
Absolutely.
Still, once again, coming out. And that being said, it is National Police Week.
It is National Police Week.
And
Is it National Police Week, or was that last week?
It was last week.
Yeah.
I missed it.
Yeah, you did.
Um,
No, we didn't.
no, we didn't. We talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about
but
it.
I wanted to follow up with it a little bit
You're
more.
playing repeater right now, and I'm picking up what you're putting down.
You're playing repeater right now, and I'm picking up what you're putting down. But we have to move on. Anywho.
What are you talking about? That was a great story.
It was a great... no, I think that story was outstanding, my friend. I didn't see anything wrong with it.
Now we need to have General Jackassery, since we kind of glossed over that section.
Well, no, that was part of our general jackassery.
That is news.
You brought up an article. I want to bring up an article.
Okay.
Our friend over at bloviatingzeppelin.net,
Ooh.
BZ, wrote a great article, and it's titled, and I quote, "Note to Speaker Ryan, fuck you."
I think it was blank.
Okay, sorry.
You.
I've talked to BZ personally, and he was just being nice. And he goes on and essentially says, "You're dead to me. The GOP establishment's dead to me. I'm sorry I had to create such a vulgar title for this post, but I'm done. Ladies and gentlemen, the GOP are working hand in hand with the leftists to bring down the nation." And it goes on, and I don't want to upstage a story. I want you to go there and read it, bloviatingzeppelin.net. It's a great letter. And it really sums up for how a lot of us are feeling right now in this country. With the refugee status, with the current election, et cetera, et cetera. I think he really kind of hits to the point. It's very well written, as is all of his articles. If you read a lot of his articles, he does a really good job. But definitely check that out. We've talked about it before. It seems like the GOP has really done a good job of trying to push people away who are otherwise in their corner. We've seen it with the anti-Trump sentiment. And again, it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, because if they did this to Cruz and Cruz was the presumptive nominee, I'd be just as angry. Or anybody else. Where you start showing me that because it's not the person you think it should be, that you're going to start slamming the divide. And then Speaker Ryan with the Syrian refugees and a lot of the other comments, he's just getting away from the core values yet further of conservatives. And he wonders why. And a lot of there are people out there who are Republicans who are wondering why there's such a rift right now with conservatives. It's shit like this. People are angry.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the Trump thing, but the Syrian refugee thing. 10,000 Syrian refugees. And they're not doing anything. That, like I wrote in the article a couple weeks ago, the simple fact that they've done nothing to fight Obama on his policies over the last couple of years. They've done plenty to attack each other nonstop. The GOP can rip each other apart better than anybody I know. But they haven't done much towards Obama. Yeah, the House has passed 52 repeal Obamacare, but the Senate hasn't acted. Dave, you're right, 300,000 refugees. I'm sorry, 300,000 Syrian refugees. But the GOP hasn't done squat.
Mm-hmm.
But they sit here and they love to tell us why we shouldn't vote for somebody. They love to tell us why we should accept the Syrian refugees. And they go against what their voter base wants on a lot of different things. Mitch McConnell in the Senate has yet to push through a repeal of Obamacare. Look at how many bills he's pushed through that has pork for his home state. He can wing those things through like an NFL quarterback throwing a ball through a hula hoop. All day long, no problem whatsoever. Maybe not Mark Sanchez, but everybody else. But when it comes to going after what the problem is, they can't do it. Look at the election right now. You think they're going after Hillary?
No.
Bernie?
No.
Trump?
No. Wait.
What was the
What
last
was I supposed to say? Trump goes after himself.
He does, and we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that.
But that's not the point. The point is we keep hearing how the party has to be brought together. And the leadership and the House, the Senate, Speaker, Mitch, Reince Priebus, that little wheeze bag, haven't done anything to unite the party.
Nope.
And then, in some ways, they're going to turn around and do kind of what we're about to do and blame Trump for some of the stuff. But the reality is, he's been Trump right along. Whether you like him or not, he's kind of had this chip on his shoulder, screw you, I don't care what you think, I'm going to say what I think is right, whether it is or it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
They keep talking about unifying a party and doing everything they can to jam it apart. And Paul Ryan has, and BZ says it in his article, and I agree, financially he's got a brilliant mind. But that's really where it seems to stop lately. He's not doing what's right for the country. He's doing what's politically correct. Is that what we want for a speaker?
No. Or was that rhetorical?
No, I'll take your answer on that.
Yeah, no.
Okay, good. I didn't want to cut you off. You're sitting over there looking all cute and excited to talk in the microphone.
Thank you. No, I want to thank you for noticing.
No,
because
no.
I wore this for you.
You did a little extra, and I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, I applaud this article. I think this is a great article by BZ.
I applaud the writer.
You got me on that one. You're right. I applaud the writer, too.
No. You already messed up.
I prefer to call him an author. But you call him whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, I call him a writer. So, speaking of Boston, what?
Okay.
Well, no, you were speaking.
Go ahead.
And your nickname is Boston.
Good point.
It was basically like speaking Boston.
By the way, if you want to join the chat, go to shrmedia.com. Right under the Spreaker little play box, click live chat. Go ahead. We hadn't said it tonight. And you just want to randomly change subjects.
I did not. You're from Boston. I'm staring at you. We're in this show together. There's a story from Boston. Makes perfect sense to me, Sean.
Go on.
Speaking of Boston, have you seen the discovery in the Boston Seaport District?
I have not.
They uncovered a shipwreck from the 1800s. They're trying to construct a high-rise building in the Seaport District. I don't know where that is. I assume it's by the seaport.
Right near South Boston.
Oh yeah, right over there.
Yeah.
I think that's in the southern part of the state, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's right on the coast in the middle. South Boston's just the south part of Boston.
Right, like the southern part.
Right, so it's between South Boston and downtown, right on the waterway.
Right over there in the southern part
It's
of the
right by
city.
the convention center.
Okay, yeah, right by the convention center in Boston. So anyways, there was a shipwreck that was found there.
Yes, I'm listening.
No, that's all. Yeah.
Fascinating. Thanks.
Look, I thought it was interesting because it was from like your hometown. Like, how do you uncover a shipwreck during construction?
Oh,
No, seriously, you're from the area. I don't know. Like, I would think the water is the water. I mean, like, has land moved out far enough over the
so if
last
you don't know a little bit-
200 years
Yes.
to okay, and that's what I don't know.
So when Boston was first settled, it was landmass-wise much smaller than it is now. They brought in a lot of dirt and expanded the land to connect Charlestown to Boston better, to collect a bunch of different areas. So if you look at a map of Boston back in the 1700s and look at it today, it is vastly different. They've added a lot more area. So it's very, very possible that ship was at the bottom of the harbor.
Yeah.
And they just started dumping dirt on top of it.
Really?
They had no idea it was there.
Yeah, but even so, you're going so far down then that wouldn't some of that water start backing up and in?
No. We do amazing things when we want to with the ocean.
And just so you know, America is so awesome that we grew the North American continent because we freaking wanted to by making Massachusetts bigger, is basically what Sean just said.
Exactly. You know what that was? I like to think of it this way. We wanted to bring the fight to England so much more that we were willing to build a land bridge over to England and kick their ass.
Right.
That's how I look at that.
And we started to. That needs to be somebody's campaign slogan. Finish the land bridge.
Finish the land bridge to England. Let's kick those limeys' ass.
Again.
Because twice wasn't enough.
And that should be the slogan. Twice wasn't enough.
One whole T-shirt. Twice wasn't enough.
Twice wasn't enough. What's twice? What is twice
Kick
wasn't
England's
enough?
ass. Twice wasn't enough.
I say just twice wasn't enough, and let people ask. Right? Have like the American flag, like the old one, like the circle of stars, versus the Union Jack of Britain, and just be like twice wasn't enough. But what's that from? Is that from like a world, like a soccer match, or from like cricket or croquet, or like what is that? And you're like, no, wars.
Oh man, all the way back to the days when the French flag actually had color in it.
Right.
And it wasn't all white.
Right. Although I think they're starting to get some of their color back.
Lately, they've been showing a lot more color. And to follow up, it's looking more and more like the Egyptian airliner that went down last week while we were on the air.
Explosion.
Is looking more and more like an explosion. More recently, the smoke in the cockpit went off. There's apparently audio between air traffic control and the tower.
Between air traffic control and the tower?
Air traffic control and the pilot saying that they were making an emergency descent. And that there was something wrong before it dove in. You have a lot of inside people leaking some stuff out, as you often do. I don't know how much of it is credible. But it's looking more and more like it was a terrorist attack.
If there was an explosion, I guess it's possible that the explosion took place on board the aircraft, right? In the cargo hold, or if it's person-borne.
Well, it's at 37,000 feet. Unless it got hit by a missile, I think.
And that was my question. Were there any surface vessels in the area? Because they would have noticed another radar track, I would imagine, right? Unless it was a stealth aircraft of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what Russia's technology is.
Depending on what radar they're using, and depending on the missile, you don't have to be more than 20 miles away. You don't even have to see the airplane for it to hit.
Right.
Or if
but I'm wondering if something would have picked up.
You're in the ocean, you could be hundreds of miles away.
Right, and that's what, so surface contacts wouldn't be. I wonder if they're tracking surface contacts also, and kind of overlaying some of that. I'm just curious. I don't know. But yeah, it is looking more and more like it was a potential terror attack. Trump called it potentially.
Yeah.
He didn't wait around.
I mean, it's sad, but this is right now in this day and age, you're more likely to be right if you call a terror attack. I mean, we said last week that it was most likely going to be a terror attack.
And look, more and more places are taking this stuff seriously. California taking it very seriously. A series of bills just passed the California Senate outlawing most guns.
Right, so that would be huge.
Which would be huge, right? Because if guns are outlawed, then terrorists won't be able to get them. So that's awesome. Yeah, they're
win, terrorists lose.
Yep. So they're trying to outlaw the bullet button. And banning all high capacity magazines over 10 rounds.
Let's talk about that after a break, because I had an interesting conversation with somebody who was duped by that bill. So I want to talk to you about that after the break, right here on the Sackheads Radio Show, live on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Kyle was stupid, bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplainsdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show. Just had a great meme sent to me by one of our friends and listeners. It's Bill Clinton laughing and clapping. He says, "If I just realized if Hillary wins, I get interns." So before the break, we were talking about California with this whole sweeping bout of gun laws. California. It is so adorable, the crap you try to pull and act like you're trying to save people's lives. It really is. It's just cute. California passed a litany of bills that are sitting on Governor Jerry Brown's desk. One of the biggest ones right now is about the bullet button. Now, for those outside of California, the bullet button on a semi-automatic AR-15 style rifle and other semi-automatic rifles, but really it applies to the AR-15, goes in place where the magazine drop goes. So instead of pushing the little button on the side and the magazine drops, you have to have what's called a bullet button. And essentially, it's an indented hole where that button would go that you have to take the tip of a 5.56 or 7.62 or just about any round that comes to a point and push it in to drop the magazine and change it out. Now, the theory behind that, however misguided it was it would slow down the amount of reload time a potential active shooter would have in an active shooter situation. A lot of it was based on the North Hollywood bank robbery shootouts back in the early 2000s. And one of the things that came out of that, it wasn't that the police didn't have the appropriate weapons to fight the bad guys. It was that they were changing magazines too fast. So in comes the idea of the bullet button. Flash forward to today. They are proposing now to outlaw.
Oh no,
the
it
bullet
passed.
button. Well, it passed. It has to be signed.
Passed the Senate. Yep.
Has to be signed by the governor. Proposed to eliminate the bullet button. Now, I've already had one friend.
And high-capacity magazines.
And high-capacity magazines.
Which they define as anything over 10.
I want to focus on the bullet button first.
Okay.
I already had one friend who is a gun owner. Who... Evil person.
Right.
Who honestly thought, because of the way it was sold to him, that it meant the bullet button itself was now able to be changed out in California and a regular magazine release could be put in its place. That is not the case.
Right.
The case is that they will eliminate bullet buttons, make the bullet button itself illegal, therefore you cannot affix it to the weapon. The weapon would then become illegal because it doesn't have a bullet button attached to it.
Right.
Therefore making primarily AR-15 style rifles or AK-47s,
or M1As.
M1As, but for the most part, AR-15 would be affected. That's the collector weapon that a lot of people have right now.
Yeah.
More so than anything else. But anything along that line, semi-automatic rifle with a detachable magazine and a pistol grip will now be outlawed in the state of California.
Or semi-automatic rifle, even with the detachable magazine, without the pistol grip.
So now, it used to be if you had what was called a Sportster grip on it, which was not the pistol, you were exempt.
Yep.
This would change that.
Yep.
You could no longer have the Sportster grip, which is just like a smooth rifle grip. And so you're looking at literally hundreds of thousands of weapons in the state of California that will now be outlawed. One of two things will happen. They will gladly probably take them at local law enforcement stations for free because they're illegal and you have to turn them in. They'll give you a grace period. Or you'll be able to transfer them out of state. Once again, the state of California will lose sales money going outside the state. To the tune, and for people who are gun owners legally, follow the law whether they like it or not. 99.9% of gun owners who are legal gun owners follow the law.
Yep.
And if this gets signed by Governor Brown, which we'll hear in the next day or two, I'm sure, it will essentially eliminate a vast majority of weapons in the state that could be possessed otherwise lawfully by a private citizen who meets the criteria. The other one they want to outlaw is high-capacity magazines, as Clint mentioned. High-cap mags in California, if you owned a weapon before the high-cap ban, and you owned the magazines before the high-cap ban, help me out, was it 2001 in California, Clint? I wasn't here. It was sometime around 99.
I don't remember. I'd have to pull.
Yeah.
I'd have to pull that for the high-cap mags.
Yeah. But if
it was more recent than that.
Was it? Maybe it was 2004. It was before I moved out to California. But you were able to maintain those because they were purchased pre-ban.
Pre-ban, right? And now here's an interesting question.
Well, wait. I haven't explained the fact that now you aren't able to possess those at all.
Right. You would have to turn those in.
Those in as well. Yep.
So I didn't think the government could take your personal property without compensation.
Well, of course they can. It's the government.
Right, and this is the problem.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain.
They're eminent domaining my guns.
Right. Right. So if you turn your guns in and you get a receipt, the government doesn't have to reimburse you because I think you're voluntarily giving up your item, right? Because you can sell it.
Right.
You can
Well,
you
and
can
that's the
sell
thing.
your gun out of state.
They're not turning around and saying you have to turn it into the government.
Right.
They're just saying you can't possess it.
Right. You can't possess it. You can turn it in if you want to, or you can sell it out of state or do something else with it.
Folks, when we talk about government going too far,
and one of the things they used was the San Bernardino
yes,
killers. Correct me if I'm wrong.
never should have possessed the weapons.
I don't have the facts right in front of me, so I'm going from memory. Were the San Bernardino terrorists? Did they have bullet buttons on those ARs, or were they regular detachable magazines?
Oh, I believe they had regular detachable magazines.
So I think, if I remember right, I think the weapons were purchased lawfully by a third party, brother-in-law or somebody else.
Right.
And then
illegally.
Right, and then they were modified illegally, I believe, and I believe high capacity magazines were also used, which were still illegal at the time, because I'm pretty sure they didn't have those pre-ban.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
So, if I'm recalling the facts of this case correctly, and anybody in the chat room, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm literally just kind of going from memory here. But I believe that they did things with those guns that they should not have done.
They shouldn't have possessed them to begin with.
That's kind of my point.
Right.
It was even if they were the weapons
So
initially
they were
were
already in violation of a law prior to the incident.
right, but the weapons were lawfully purchased.
Mm-hmm.
But then I believe they were illegally modified,
Mm-hmm.
transferred,
Mm-hmm.
and they had
Well,
magazines that they shouldn't have had.
Technically, they were in a law violation when they conspired to commit the act with those weapons as well.
Right, but we're talking just about the weapons
but,
violations here.
Right, I understand.
Yes, yeah. Technically, they were violating the law when they were conspiring to commit a terror attack.
Right.
Right.
And why didn't that stop them?
Because it was illegal. It wasn't. It's not illegal specifically in California by state statute to not engage in a terrorist activity at that date and time at that particular location, specifically using those weapons.
Right, but they'll tell
what
me
part
when
of
I
this
can
are
water
you?
my friggin' lawn.
What
Go on.
part of this are you not understanding, Sean? So the very justification they used to kind of spin this or sell this to the public is flawed. Right off the bat.
Of course it is. Honestly, you look at the history of gun control, and we've talked about it on the show 1,000 times, probably more. It's never actually worked. It's never and it's never gonna work. Because bad people who do bad things with guns or not are gonna still do bad things. Look at Terry McNichols and Timothy McVeigh and the FBI attack. Not a single weapon was used. A bullet. They used a bomb. Look at the World Trade Centers. The first bombing and then the actual 9/11 incident.
Mm-hmm.
You look at cars that have been used as weapons over and over again. Evil people are going to do evil shit no matter what laws you have on the books. But what you're doing now is eliminating the good people from being able to defend themselves against bad people and bad government, should it ever be needed. Now, I feel that if you tested this in court, it will lose, depending on who the next Supreme Court justice is, once it gets to that point. But unless a federal,
do you want to take that chance?
No. I don't want to take that chance. But if a federal judge doesn't put an injunction in place to stop the law from going into effect before it reaches that level, you're still going to have to, in order to be in compliance with the law, offload all your weapons out of state.
Yeah.
And then if the law is dropped, either repurchase them, transfer. And in California, it's what, $50 to transfer a weapon from out of state? Even if you're the rightful owner to ship it back into state to you.
Right.
It has to go through a dealer. So
right.
If you're a collector of a sizable proportion, even if you don't sell them, say you own property in a house in another state, you lock them up there, you still have to pay an ass ton of money to be in compliance of the law.
And those of you that don't know how much an ass ton is, that is actually a literal mathematical measurement.
It's not even metric.
No, it's not.
So you just have to look at the big picture. Folks, when I talk about gun control, I'll say this over and over again. The left will never come out and say, we want to ban all guns. It's not going to happen. You're not going to hear those words come out of their mouths. You didn't hear it from the left back in Germany with the Jews. They didn't just come out and say, as a matter of fact,
they were allowed to have guns, weren't they?
They tried it first, if you look at history. Hitler tried it first to kind of just outright start getting rid of Jews. And people pushed back immensely.
Mm-hmm.
So what did he do? He demonized them in public eyes, made up all these lies about them. Are you equating the Jews to gun control? Yes! They removed their weapons, and then they were a controllable mass. If you told me that California was trying to pass a bill that if you're a registered conservative, that you had to wear a giant C on your chest, I would not be shocked anymore. They keep pushing further and further left. And even if you don't want to own a gun, you don't want to lose the right to own a gun. Because it's not necessarily you. It's everybody else. I go back to Penn and Teller talking about gun control and talking about the Second Amendment and why it was written the way it was written. Because we had just fought a war against a tyrannical government, and the founders wanted to make sure that if the need ever rose again to have to do so, we were prepared. That's the basis of it. Yes, we can also hunt and sports shoot and all this other stuff.
The Second Amendment wasn't founded because the deer were coming after us.
Right. We weren't attacked by large English deer.
Right.
And then it's also defense in an otherwise lawless state that is becoming more and more lawless, like California.
Yep.
Where people are being released from prison because they didn't commit a nonviolent crime this time, but they have a violent history.
Mm-hmm.
But this specific one was just DUI. And it was an accident. It wasn't on purpose. I mean, it wasn't any sort of crime like that. He was just drunk and killed 5 people, so we're just going to let him out early. You have to understand, the left has a long-term goal. And that long-term goal, depending on which side of the left you can believe, is the socialist peaceful utopia where everyone gets along and everyone has equal things and blah, 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 blah. And I believe that there are some people who believe in that for the right reason in their mind, that everything will be wonderful and magical, and it's because they just don't know the truth. And then you have those who outright feel that they are more important and better than everybody else and want to be able to control them. If guns are so bad, why is it that every single elected politician above mayor, and even
some mayors,
are protected with guns? They're not protected with no gun zones per se. Yeah, they're in their buildings, but even then, the only people in that building allowed to have guns are the government.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is they protect themselves with guns. Well, that's because they're afraid of other people with guns. No. You've had politicians and other people be attacked with all sorts of devices. You need to realize, and this isn't conspiracy theory time. This is a look of history and how it repeats itself. And you look at other atrocities since World War II where people have been disarmed and then slaughtered. You look at the attacks that take place, mass shootings in this country. Anything over 4 in one single incident's a mass shooting. That's the technical definition. Not suicide and all the other crap that the administration tries to push out when they talk about gun violence. By the way, suicide isn't gun violence. no more than hanging yourself is a domestic suicide or a domestic violence act. Just because a weapon was used doesn't mean it's gun violence, so knock it off. But the reality is what it is. They trump up these numbers all over the place to scare people. Look at Australia, prime example. Australia, that was only, 5-6 years ago? Now they're talking about reversing it. England, they've done it twice. The first time was before World War II, and they were begging for our guns when they were feared that Germany would invade. And we sent them ours. Our citizenry donated weapons, their personal firearms, to protect the people of England. And then they got rid of them again. And now what's happening in Europe, in England? You're starting to see their law enforcement, who used to never carry firearms, starting to rearm their forces. Because the threat is so great right now. You look at Australia, as Agate pointed out in the chat room. 6 years ago, crime is through the roof in Australia. Specifically, person-on-person crime, assaults, robberies, all these other ones. And they're talking about reversing it. After they had the incident, I want to say it was last year in the coffee shop, where ISIS member took people hostage, etc.
Yep.
They started to have the conversation. Hey, we need to reverse this. And they probably will. They're to the point where if you want to have a hunting rifle, you have to have a permit. And I believe in some municipalities, you have to store your weapons at the police station and check them out to go hunting for a period of time. Like they're on parole. Like the guns are on parole.
Right.
I've always said, I would much rather have a gun and not need it than never not have a gun and need it. When I talk about gun control, and I bring up the basis for the Second Amendment, that doesn't mean it doesn't apply to other places. Self-protection is one of the biggest ones, against tyranny or against evildoers. And an evildoer could very well be a guy with a knife who wants your wallet. That's still an evildoer. Or it could be the illegal alien who's down on the pier in San Francisco that
criminal
alien that shoots a young lady who should have been deported already.
The young lady should have been deported?
No, the criminal alien.
The criminal alien.
The two police officers who were shot up here by a guy who's already deported twice. Murdered.
Well, maybe if there was a law against him possessing a weapon.
There was.
Oh. Look, here's the thing, Sean. We've talked about this before. I mean, we talk about 2A a lot on this show. But the founders didn't envision this type of weapons that we have today. They didn't envision high-capacity magazines. They didn't envision bullet buttons and quick magazine releases.
You're right, they didn't. They also didn't picture free speech being done over computers and cell phones.
Right, or via microphone, or, Yeah, never mind.
And for those people who want to argue, oh, government would never do that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine. What if there's a natural disaster?
Hang on a second. Yes, government would do that.
Yeah, it would. But there are people you're not going to be able to convince of that. They're just... you have to have secondary arguments.
There is a reason why it is illegal for the military to engage in a law enforcement function in time of peace.
Right.
You cannot have armed members of the military.
You need a declaration from the governor or a war declaration.
That's for National Guard.
Right.
Right.
Or a war declaration for Congress.
Right. You cannot have members of the military just come in and work operations in your streets.
Right.
Armed.
Yeah.
And take action against citizenry if something happens.
Right.
Could you imagine? If members of the military wanted to conduct some kind of operation in city streets or among the citizenry? Look at the outcry that went out for Jade Helm.
Right.
Right? Can you imagine if that operation Jade Helm, if it got out, that there were active duty military folks actually armed and that they were prepared to take action if something happened? Could you imagine that headline or what would have happened?
It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic.
And so I understand the outcry when Jade Helms. You remember when we covered stories on it and stuff. And I mean that's just one example of the military. So yeah, the government would, and I'm not saying this government would do that, although there's been some interesting things that this administration has done for sure.
I don't care who's in office. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
The potential for tyranny is always there.
Always. Because the temptation for power. And man is fallible. And our leaders are human. And they are fallible. And you can have somebody going into office with all the right intention. Look, this is why I think term limits are a big deal.
Huge.
Because power corrupts.
Right. Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
So, yeah, the Second Amendment. I wish it were the first. Look, hey, Congress, how about this? I have an idea. I'm gonna talk to our men and women in Congress for a moment.
Oh, good. This should solve a lot.
Yeah. Hey, Paul. Talking to you, Paul. Why don't you get off your ass and introduce a constitutional amendment and just take all doubt away from the interpretation of the Second Amendment? Mm-hmm. Or, hey, states. I'm going to talk to all the state governors and assembly bodies here. Hey, guys, how about you call a convention of states together? There's enough of you with Republican-controlled houses to do it. Call a convention of the states together and pass a constitutional amendment, or at least try to, at least sack up and try to, that will erase all doubt as to what the interpretation of the Second Amendment is.
Fix it.
Fix it.
If you're so concerned that it's wrong.
If you're really concerned, no, I'm talking to the conservative group out there, or the liberals, either side. Somebody have the testicular fortitude to call a convention of states, or do it in Congress, since the Republicans control it right now, and clarify the Second Amendment and put it through as a constitutional amendment, and then all this goes away.
I agree.
If a majority of the country really believes this way, really feels this way, believes strongly in the Second Amendment, huge 2A, then why not rework it?
Right, and let's throw term limits, as Agudo suggests.
Yeah,
Congress
but
and SCOTUS.
Yes, absolutely. But we're talking just about 2A right now. Look, then.
Well, if you're gonna have a convention.
If you're gonna have a convention, might as well ask for everything, right?
If you're gonna make a wish list from Santa.
But let's just deal with the 2A issue right now. Hey, look, throw verbiage in there. The right of the individual citizen to keep and bear arms of whatever kind for personal defense and preservation of liberty shall not be infringed. Period. And you can add other verbiage in there as well. You know,
to make it absolute.
Right.
Hey, listen, I think the Second Amendment reads plainly.
Right. Any firearm commonly in production in the world. Right.
Common firearm in production that is regularly sold, purchased,
and that way 150, 200, 300 years from now we're not having this argument, they didn't envision bubble gum blowing things that suck the air out of people because you encompassed them in a big bubble.
No, I agree. And the last point I really wanted to make, if it's okay with you, just before we wrap up, is even if you're not worried about government, think natural disaster.
Yeah.
Hurricane Katrina, the absolute insanity that went on, and people weren't able to defend themselves at all times. And you look at how this country goes crazy if people don't have power for 48 hours. Imagine if it's something major, EMP, naturally caused. Solar flare. Things to think about. Hey,
that's why I wear a tinfoil hat. I have a quote for you.
You too, actually.
I do. I want a quote for you before you
really
get
small.
on. Look,
and you call it Jimmy.
This is a quote. But now, if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. You know who said that?
Who?
Jesus. Luke 22:36.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Uh-huh. Even Jesus knew it was an individual, right?
He knew what was up.
Yeah. I mean, he may have been talking more metaphorically because that's what he did.
No,
But
you
still.
can get a sword.
But still.
Get a sword. Hey, other news of you hockey fans. I know Joe and a couple other people are hockey fans. The San Jose Sharks, for the first time ever, will be headed to the Stanley Cup. 5-2 victory over the Blues.
The Blues, like from Jungle Book?
Blues. It's just the bare necessities. So, hey, congrats to them.
Congratulations.
I'm a big hockey fan, and I've liked the Sharks organization. I think they do a good job, and they really try to make a winner. So good for them. First time to the dance. Have fun. We'll be back after this right here on the Sackheads Radio Show. We come back, we talk about Venezuela.
Venezuela?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here's Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cop from a stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking, drinking, drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver Common Sense Show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com and HighPlainsDailyNews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show, live on the SHR Media Network. It's hour number 2 here of the Sackhead Insanity. Thank you so much for sticking around. Or if you're freshly joining us, welcome. Go to shrmedia.com, click live chat right under the Spreaker play box if you want to join the conversation in the chat room. So I want to say thank you to all the well wishes I got on social media, I tore my ACL last week, and I put it out today because I wasn't really sure till today as to what happened. Got the MRI done this morning, found out that I did in fact tear my ACL, so I'll probably have to go through surgery and some other things to get it fixed. But honestly, the amount of text messages, inbox messages, emails, and stuff like that I got is pretty touching. And I really appreciate that because I probably don't deserve it. Everyone who's telling me you ever notice when you have an injury like this, how many people want to tell you about their injury just like it? And I appreciate it because, it's always good to get other perspectives. This will be my 4th knee surgery, so I have a pretty good idea what to expect, and I will be fine. I'll be back, well, probably not. I'll be back soon, to 100%. Quick question from the chat room was, did Clint hit you by mistake when he was throwing a rock at a hooker? Excellent reference there.
Great question.
Excellent, Agador. Thank you.
Great question. Yes. Yeah. Look, here's so Sean makes up this whole bubble soccer story, and it's cute, but here's what happened. So I was in a hotel this weekend, and outside I see this rather robust hooker. And this hook, to give you an idea of what this hooker looked like, do you remember the Tasmanian devil?
Yeah, very well.
Do you remember the she-devil?
Yes.
It looked like that.
Oh, don't insult the she-devil.
This hooker, or what I thought was a hooker, looked like the Tasmanian she-devil. And so I do what I do. I threw a rock at her.
This is still one of my favorite bits that we've done on this show.
That was hilarious. That was pure gold.
What was that, last year when you were in Fresno for
yes,
some reason?
Yes.
Clint called in live. I wish I could find the show off the top of my head. But explained how his pastime while passing time in Fresno after his important meetings was to chuck rocks at hookers outside of his hotel room. Oh, man. So, yeah.
And then after I threw a pretty good sized rock at this one Tasmanian she hooker,
she ate it.
I recognized the scream, and lo and behold, it was Sean trying to mess with me. I guess he was going to try and film it, put it on YouTube, something. I don't know.
Yeah, you got me. You got me good. Let me tell you.
So how was that Ag that nailed that?
Yes.
Yeah. So Ag actually
is actually pretty amazing with and he was just
Ag knows us.
Just pointing out in the chat room that Agador is like our personal biographer,
right?
Because he remembers stuff that even I forget about.
How could you forget about the hooker?
The hooker one I didn't forget about,
right?
Nor the other one that he's brought up, which was the crowdsourced aircraft carrier. Which I love the fact that I still want to do it.
A sackhead aircraft carrier.
Sackhead aircraft carrier, because that's what we need.
Hey, the Second Amendment guarantees us that right.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
And letters of marque.
If we could get both, we'd be on a mission.
If we could get the aircraft carrier with letters of marque.
Dude, I'm telling you right now, you could make almost like, you know how you do tour guides on fishing, on rivers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
You do something like that, only pirate hunting.
Or terrorist hunting.
Well, it's the same thing at sea, because you're in an aircraft carrier.
Right.
With the letter of marque, you can't go into other sovereign soil and hunt without permission from that country. If you get permission, that's fine.
Right.
But let's just stick to the letters of marque thing.
Right, so stay in international waters.
International waters, sanctioned by the U.S. government.
Yep, U.S. flagged ship.
Yep, absolutely.
We'd have to, even if we had an aircraft carrier, we'd have to put 3 masts on it.
We're not landing aircraft.
Right.
And if we do, it'll be a helicopter to evac me for drinking too much. Now.
Right, or maybe we get a surplus helicopter and we throw some, rockets on it, or a guy with a revolver.
So you do a guided...
That way we actually can do an aerial assault.
You do a guided hunt for pirates in international waters. We'd even have to do real pirate radio, Agador says, and obviously broadcast. We'd broadcast SHR Media. It would be indoctrination. You'd actually have to sign the waiver that you'd listen to SHR Media around the clock while you're on it.
Right.
I just think that'd be
And click on all the ads. Every ad that pops up, you have to click on it. Right.
SHRmedia.com. Just add,
Right. Yep.
add. So I think it's a brilliant idea. We need to get back to planning that out. I want to talk a little bit about Venezuela.
I have a plan. Is it possible that we can raise the Oriskany from the Gulf of Mexico?
We can give it a shot.
Here we go. Hear me out on this.
Okay.
We take balloons down to the bottom of the ocean.
Float it.
Right? We have helium cartridges.
Mm-hmm.
We blow the helium cartridges out. How many balloons with helium cartridges would it take to raise that?
10.
I'm thinking maybe 12.
Okay. All right. That might be a better one.
I say we give it a shot.
Let's do it. Are you waiting for an argument?
No, I'm waiting for confirmation. Let's go do it. Let's go dive the Oriskany. Attach a couple balloons.
Let's go dive the Oriskany. You know that old chestnut.
I'm sure we get it to the surface, it'd float, right?
Agador saying ping pong. Jersey Joe says do it with ping pong balls.
Ping pong balls. Great story about ping pong balls in this one show I saw in Mexico. Hear me out on this.
We don't have time. We have to get to Venezuela.
Okay, let's go to Venezuela.
So, 5 years ago, Venezuela was the socialist utopia that everyone wants America to be.
Yeah, so much energy that they don't even know what to do with it.
Hugo Chavez was president. Life was pretty damn good.
Yeah, it was amazing. Amazing.
People had what they wanted and sometimes what they needed.
And sometimes they had neither.
So, well, that just the poor people. But it's socialism. That's okay.
Right.
Much like Bernie Sanders in this country and his cohorts are pushing, that socialist utopia dream where everyone's equal and everything's distributed equal. You're given what you need, not what you want, but you learn to make do. 5 years ago, Venezuela was the pinnacle of socialist, unicorn, farts, utopia. There wasn't a better place to be. Let's flash forward to 2016.
I'm sure it's booming. It's got to be.
There's concern now that the
that it's booming too much. It's growing too fast.
The military is going to have to come in and essentially declare martial law.
Wait, what?
They're barely able to keep the power on in the major cities.
What?
I saw a report on CNN last week. Read a report about the state of the hospitals in Venezuela. That they're literally having people die because they can't keep life support on. They don't have blood. They don't have oxygen. They don't have proper equipment. They're doing medieval surgeries in the hallways just to try to keep people alive. Hallways covered with blood everywhere because they can't afford. They don't have the running water in some cases to clean it up.
So what you're saying is my statement of they have so much energy they don't know what to do with it was accurate. They in fact don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do with it.
Literally. Okay.
And I don't want to give them credence to that. I don't, and I'll tell you why in a second. At this particular hospital, I believe in a 5-day period, 8 or 10 babies had passed away. In the city itself, people are struggling to get food, keep food on the shelves in the stores, have money to find it, be able to power their house. It was... And Agador just nailed it. It's like a scene out of Resident Evil. And it's funny because I'm playing... I finally bought a video game because I'm going to be...
Tell me it was Fallout.
It was Fallout 4.
Fallout 4?
Because I'm not going to be able to move for a while.
Right.
Post-apocalyptic downtown Boston, actually.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes. I'll tell you off the air. It's a great game. But there's a lot of truth to it. People are literally running around scavenging. In the capital cities, the big cities of Venezuela... There's not even coverage into the outskirts and how horrible it must be there. The president of Venezuela is vowing to not change things, that they'll fix it with the system they have. The opposition, who's trying to push it back to a capitalist form of government like it used to be, is being squashed, not heard in the press, etc. We are not seeing regularly the amount of conflict from people in the streets fighting with the government. And the government's ignoring it. Why?
I don't know.
Well, because we see with Bashar al-Assad and other totalitarian and or socialist communist leaders that the rich and those in control, no matter how bad it gets for the people on the street and the citizenry, look at North Korea. They live like kings. They continue to live like kings. Because socialism, communism, doesn't work the way everyone thinks it does. You don't have the president, prime minister, leader, etc., who's living off the same food rations or going to the same store as the average people. You don't have the Congress or whatever form of government they have doing the same thing. Oh, no, those people are paid a lot more. They're completely taken care of by the government. Pretty much whatever they want. Venezuela is rich in energy, ridiculously rich in energy. A couple years ago, Hugo Chavez was talking about selling to Russia and other places to essentially get even with us when we were having the real fallout with Russia that started essentially where we are now with Russia. They were boasting, spending money like crazy. And now they can't keep the damn lights on. When you look at socialism in this country, you see Bernie Sanders, a lot of others on the left, hell, some on the right, and they don't even realize they're being socialists. Talk about these socialist programs. Obamacare, not a socialist program per se yet. It's on the cusp because right now there's still free market entities involved. Yes, you have limited options, much like socialism. However, it's going down that road. United Healthcare, who is one of the biggest private entities that is involved in Obamacare, medical companies, who everyone says if they fall and they have to pull out of Obamacare, the system will collapse and we will be at a single-payer system.
Almost like it was designed that way.
Socialist.
Weird,
healthcare.
right?
Absolutely strange.
Weird. Because we were talking about this.
What, 8 years
ago?
ago?
Never mind.
The funny part is, all reports right now is that United Healthcare is paying out $400 for every $5 they make with Obamacare.
For every $500 they make?
$5.
Oh.
With Obamacare.
That's a problem.
That's not a made-up number.
That doesn't work.
When you look at socialism, and we argue against socialism, the common argument from socialists is, well, it just hasn't been done correctly in modern times.
How about ever?
Venezuela was the one they were touting for the last few years. Look at Venezuela, look how great it is, and blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. It's fallen. And it only took 10 years, start to end. It's fallen. When I say Bernie Sanders is true to himself, he is a socialist. I don't deny that. He doesn't deny that.
Mm-mm.
He's been very forthcoming.
Here's what I don't understand. I mean, I understand it, but here's the idiocy of that argument and that viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Our country has existed for how long? 200 years? I don't want to do math right now. Right? Under 200, just under 250 years.
Mm-hmm.
And our system of government that was established by the founders created the greatest, richest nation the world has ever known. The most generous nation that the world has ever known. You look at who funds the UN. You look at how much relief is given from the United States to countries after major disasters and when things are going on. We are the most generous nation on the face of the earth. We're the most prosperous people on the face of the earth. We are blessed with individual liberties. The freest society that the world has ever known. There are people very close to me whose families have come from literally a third world country. Mm-hmm. My perspective on certain things has changed. Mm-hmm. And I've come to appreciate our country more, and really the values we have. I've always appreciated and understood that we're the greatest nation on earth, but this just added a different perspective to it. And to understand the principles that created this country, our society, our culture, and to want to turn away from that when it's been so successful for so long is insanity to me. I mean, forget about, not that you should, but forget about the historical context of Rome and the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire, but particularly the Roman Empire and the rise and fall of Rome and that republic and kind of what brought it down. And there are ridiculous parallels between the rise and fall of Rome and the rise and the decline of the United States of America. And we could do a whole hour segment or a whole show on that. But I want to point out, and I think I understand how it happened, and one of the reasons it happened is through our education system and the indoctrination of our children, where we don't learn that America is exceptional anymore. We don't learn about American exceptionalism, American entrepreneurship. We don't learn about the founding principles that really made our nation as great as it is. The crap that's being fed to our kids is America's oppressive, it's imperial, it had slavery, and blah 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 blah. And look, our country's not perfect. We have absolutely had our mistakes, as every nation does. But we've come a long way to correct our mistakes. Mm-hmm. We have come a ridiculously long way to correct our mistakes. Yes. And if you think you're oppressed here in this country, I invite people who are in the LGBTXYZ, and I say that because I don't understand, I don't know all the letters, but the transgender, lesbian, gay, bisexual, that community, go over to the Middle East, see how free you are.
Yep.
Go to Russia, see how free you are.
Yep.
Go to China. You go see how free you are and how many liberties and how tolerant they are of you.
And I say it all the time. The wheels that we hear from in this country are the ones who are very militant about it. Most LGBT people don't even want to get involved.
Most of them
want to be left alone.
Well, most of them understand that most of us don't care. Like we support. That's your personal decision. Right. Whether we agree or disagree or whatever, that's your personal decision. We're not going to judge you as a person, or that's not a lifestyle that maybe I choose to live or you choose to live, but they choose not to live my lifestyle. So
I have always been a lesbian.
Right. So have I. But you know what I'm saying. They're not going to choose to live my lifestyle or your life, and that's okay. It's not like they hate us or, anyways. It's just complete lunacy to me that the people on the socialist kick, this leftist agenda, this living, breathing document, everything is always in flux. No, it's not. There is a set foundation of principles, laws, rights that got us to become the greatest and freest nation in the history of the world. Why would you get away from that? If you have a formula that you know works, if you have a formula and you know that this formula is going to give you $500,000 a year for the rest of your life as long as you just keep plugging in the same numbers, why would you change the numbers?
Why not?
Well, because we want to improve. We want to grow. Okay, but then improve and grow within the foundational principles that were laid down. Nobody's saying you can't improve and grow and have better laws or identify different areas of improvement and growth, but do so within the structure that's been erected so that the direction we go continues to improve, continues to grow. You bring the healthcare thing up. That healthcare system that Obama put into place, so the Obamacare system, is essentially erecting a new structure. It's a new way of doing it. It's not operating within the free market principles.
At all. You're creating the wheel again.
So if you're not creating something to improve upon, And I'm not saying the healthcare system didn't need a fix, because it did, and it does. But craft that fix in a way that still follows the principles that got us to be as prosperous of a nation as we are.
Wheel, don't reinvent it.
Absolutely. You look at when our Great Depressions happened. They happened after liberal progressive policies.
Yeah.
The Roaring '20s came about after a progressive term and policies. The Roaring '20s happened because we were pulled out of that, and we had a great series of prosperity. FDR did not get us out of the Great Depression through New Deal. He didn't. We learned that in schools.
Right.
But New Deal tactics probably prolonged the depression that we had.
Right.
The free market was not able to work. There were price controls. There were all these controls and regulations that stifled us. What pulled us out was Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, and we got involved in a war where we had to kick up industrial production.
Mm-hmm.
That's what pulled us out.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the New Deal that Woodrow Wilson put forth.
Well, you also look at, some of the most prosperous times in this country in modern history. You had the 50s after World War II. The 60s for the first half of it. And then all of a sudden it started to go downhill. The 70s with the oil crisis and all the other stuff. And then we had a pretty minor depression, but a depression nonetheless. 86 was the Wall Street crash. Was that the Black Friday, whatever it was, Wall Street crash? And then recently. All because we overspent and gave away stuff. You know, one of the biggest problems with the New Deal is the chicken in every pot. Well, who's going to pay for the friggin' chicken? Everyone keeps thinking... It amazes me when people think the government has this never-ending supply of money because on the news they see a printing press. They have no understanding of how economics actually work. It's amazing to me. They think that we get more money by printing it. They don't realize that it has to be based off something. Right now, it's based on a belief that it's money, believe it or not. Our current system on the Fed, essentially, it is belief that money is the only thing that keeps it afloat.
Mm-hmm.
You've made this analogy before, the statement before, I completely agree with you. If all of a sudden, everybody in the country turned around and said pots and pans are now the currency, it would be the currency.
Yeah.
Because at least then you had pots and pans that could decide how much things are worth.
Right, you'd have something physical.
We used to have the silver standard, the gold standard. We couldn't print more money than there was kept in the federal treasury.
Right, in terms of hard metals.
Yes.
In terms of right. So if you look at an old U.S. $1 bill that was on the silver, it was called a silver certificate.
Yep.
You were guaranteed that much silver upon demand from the U.S. Treasury.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kept the government from being able to overspend and take out ridiculous loans and all the other things. You didn't have the amount of debt that we have right now because in order for the government to operate, it was kept inside the confines of that treasury. Now, because it's an imaginary system, you have $16 trillion in debt to friggin' China. You have a socialist trying to step into the White House and tell us socialism works. You have the cost of everything going through the roof. Everything. Inflation. All this other crap. And people still think that socialism is a good idea. Because they don't understand economics. Basic economics. You want to understand what it's like when you try to spend more as a government than what you have.
Mm-hmm.
Get your bank account. Take all the money out but $20 and try to write a $30 check. That is basic economics.
Yep.
You might pass it. However, you're going to come back with more fees and everything else so you know what to do with. Hell, in some counties and states, you may be prosecuted for that.
Yep.
Knowingly writing a check that you don't have money for. It's a crime. if a citizen does it. But when the government does it, it's just good business in their eyes. We're up against a break. When we come back, what? Go.
No,
I'm sorry.
No, we are up against a break. I could talk about Warren Harding in the 20s forever.
Let's keep going
after
when we come back. This is a great topic.
But there's other things we need to get on, some pressing news. So we'll see if we have time to come back to it. Otherwise, we can do a whole section on the
Well, I don't want to cut you off
Great
when
Depression.
you're all about Warren Harding.
We're past a break. Sacco would not let us continue on. Sacco would not let us continue on.
This would not allow if Sacco was here. We'll be back in 3 here on the Sackheads Radio Show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. That you didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean,
Dude, I'm not saying cop for the stupid bro.
Sackhead Clint,
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver Common Sense Show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplainsdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, make sure you follow us on all of our social media. Sackheads on Facebook, SHR Media on Facebook, Sackhead Sean on Facebook, on Twitter, at Sackhead Clint, at Sackhead Sean, at Sackheads. You know, give us some love, damn it. That's all I'm saying. Give us some love.
I had a great quote from somebody that I knew a while ago, and he said, "Love washes off." I'm sorry, I can't talk.
No, I'm in the same boat right now. We need to make that a T-shirt. No, Joe, don't.
Yeah, we do. Do it. Look, so 11 states are suing the Obama administration over its transgender directive regarding public schools. I remember we talked about that last week. So the following states, it was Texas, of course, Alabama, Wisconsin, West Virginia, Tennessee, Arizona, Maine, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Utah, and Georgia.
Good.
11 states have sacked up to sue the Obama administration.
Only another 39 to go.
Yeah. I wanted to bring that up because I know we talked about it last week, and it's an important topic. Obama came out last week and basically said, if public school is getting federal funds, you got to allow boys to shower with girls, girls shower with boys, because they might feel like the other one. Can you imagine if you were a kid today, or in this day and age?
Dude, I would totally be the worst. Listen, I was a typical 15, 16, 17
Right, I'd be like, I am such a girl today.
Dude, I'm a chick, and I'm a huge lesbian.
Yeah, I'm staring at boobies because I really wish I had some. Because I think I want some. In my face. I mean, on me, because I think I'm a girl. Look, I'll even tuck. Wait, I can't right now. No, it's because I'm nervous. That's why it's like that right now. Seriously.
That's why I'm hung like an ashtray.
They all stand up like that.
Yeah, that's totally normal.
It's normal. It's normal. It's only on people that feel like we're women that happens to. So I just wanted to update our listeners on that. Look, did you see the State Department, the report that came out today?
Yes.
From the Obama administration appointed
slamming report.
Yes.
It's so big that even CNN and MSLSD and all those other ones had to actually post something.
Yeah. They had to. It was like Obama appointed guy finds Clinton violated an obscure policy. It was probably like their headline.
Actually, CNN headline is a picture of Hillary Clinton in a meeting with her sunglasses on, staring at her phone, and the quote was, "She did not comply. Clinton broke rules about private email server. Report says."
She didn't do it.
Let's see. The long and short of it is according to the internal investigation by the Defense Department, that there was an employee who brought it up to the head of the department, and it wasn't the Defense Department itself. It was a different department, Office of Management, and the Office of Legal Advisor. The guy who was in charge of that, who's since been removed, had a staffer walk into his office and say, "Hey, she has this server," and she was completely outside of her legal right to do so. So he essentially told her, the staffer, I believe it was a she from one of the quotes I saw, "Yeah, no, it's fine, and don't ever speak about this again." This was a manager, a high-tier manager. When confronted about a potential violation of our secrecy laws and acts, about a Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, having a private server at her house in which she's answering emails via. A major concern. Don't ever talk about that again. She's a Clinton. She's Secretary of State weekend. Oh, just shush. Just shush. You shut your fat, whorish mouth, I think is the exact quote that he said.
We're working to confirm that.
We're looking to confirm that.
the Inspector General's audit is pretty. It's pretty. It wasn't as harsh as it could have been.
Right.
But it did come out and say, look, the department, quote, was slow to recognize and to manage effectively the legal requirements and cybersecurity risks associated with the electronic data communications. So if it's slow to recognize and manage effectively the legal requirements, I just want to break that down for a moment. If you fail to recognize or manage the legal requirements of the speed limit, you're probably in violation of the speed limit law, right?
Yeah.
Because you're talking about legal requirements. If you fail, like we talked to, if this crazy law in California on guns passes, and a gun owner fails to recognize and manage effectively the legal requirements of gun ownership, they're probably going to end up going to jail. Right?
Right.
Because if you're not managing the legal requirements effectively, you're probably in violation, is the logical conclusion.
I think it's quite logical.
So according to this report, if they're slow to recognize and manage effectively the legal requirements and cybersecurity risks associated with electronic data communications, then somebody broke the law.
Well, yeah. That time. Luckily, that only happened like every day.
The report goes back and says, "Oh, look, this systematic weakness happened long before Clinton's tenure." But then the report talks about how Clinton's failures and actions were far more serious than previous administrations.
Mm-hmm.
So, I want to know how the Justice Department does not file charges, if in fact they do not.
Well, the good part is this. Here's the thing. When we've talked about this in the past, one of the things that we had to reiterate is the investigation needs to make sure that it's bipartisan, just to avoid the fact that it's a political hack job. Not because what she did was right and we're attacking her, but just to save the naysayers in that department. You now have an Obama administration appointed investigatory committee who completed this investigation that will be admissible into court should it go that far.
Mm-hmm.
And you now have the investigation will very soon, I am imagining, probably early June, end up in the hands of the DOJ. The FBI is getting ready to wrap up here real soon. This investigation wrapped up. I am sure the FBI was waiting for this investigation to wrap up just to compare things to make sure that there's nothing that they missed and vice versa. And you now can move forward. And listen, this is a leftist committee. It was the Obama administration. It's an executive organization under the executive branch. He had direct control over this. As we saw with Benghazi, should he want it to be a different outcome than what should have happened, he has the power to do it. However wrong as it was. But in this case, it sounds like the right thing is being done. You have a woman who believes that she is untouchable and above the law. You have a woman who continuously rubs her elite status in the face of people. You have a woman who couldn't even use the appropriate email. It wasn't like they were asking her to invent an email to use. She couldn't use the one that was given to her by the federal government.
Yep.
It wasn't like they were asking her to be inconvenienced greatly. First of all, she took the friggin' job. Nobody put a gun to her head.
Was she the head of the? Was she the head of the State Department?
Yes.
I want to read you something. It's Section 44 of the U.S. of the United States Code, Chapter 31, and specifically Section 3106. Unlawful removal, destruction of records. The head of each federal agency, that would be her, shall notify the archivist of any actual impending or threatened unlawful removal, defacing, alteration, corruption, deletion, erasure, or other destruction of records in the custody of the agency, and with the assistance of the archivist shall initiate action through the Attorney General for the recovery of records the head of the federal agency knows or has reason to believe may have been removed.
Wait, what?
Uh-huh.
What?
Uh-huh. And that's just little old me just doing a quick search.
Just little you just doing a quick old search.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's absolutely mind-numbing. First of all, if anyone out there...
So imagine what those really smart FBI folks could find.
Right. People who actually have time.
Right.
And get paid to do it. I know I'm reading through the chat room, there's plenty of naysayers who are like, hey...
What? Do share.
Obama will never let the prosecution happen. And we've talked before, there's no love lost between the Clintons and the Obamas.
Right, there's not. And so that's why this is kind of curious. But I'm pretty sure it's a felony when the custodian of government records, quote, willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, falsifies, or destroys records.
White Mamba says Hillary wouldn't be eligible for hire at Walmart if she weren't a Clinton. 100% right.
Right.
100% right. It's actually an amazing statement.
Now, here's the interesting thing for this section. Congress has this provision in it that whoever does that shall, quote, forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States.
So as long as they can convict her on that one charge, she would
that's
not
not the one charge I was talking about earlier.
Okay.
It's just for destruction of records. It's another statute, but yeah, with what she allegedly did, she should be barred from holding any public office.
I agree. And it's looking more and more that the cards are stacking up against Hill Dog. Now, for those people who think that Obama would protect her, I think Obama would rather see Bernie than Hillary.
But I don't know how he can protect her. He could pardon her upon conviction, but then she's still been convicted, right?
Well, and it's also he's also a legacy guy. He cares more about his legacy than he does about what's going on. And he knows this is one of those things that if she gets a pass, it will forever mar his legacy as being the very elite he claims he never was.
Uh-huh.
And that's a big deal to him. This guy's an egomaniac. We've talked about it before. He's a narcissist, egomaniac president. It's all about him. And if he doesn't allow this to go through, and she were to be elected president, it would destroy his legacy completely. This is all he would ever hear about until the day he leaves this earth. About how he gave one of the biggest political hack jobs a pass and she became president. So I think that there is too much evidence and there's almost too much public pressure for this to get a pass. I think a lot of people, even those who are quote-unquote Democrat Hillary supporters, understand that you have to kind of let the chips fall on this. You roll the dice. You're better off going to court and maybe there'll be a mistrial. Maybe the conviction will get thrown out. Maybe the probable cause will get thrown out. Something.
Right.
And hope for a legal BS approach. And still have eligibility.
Bank on the fact that you're a Clinton.
Yeah. And so, have eligibility in November.
I don't think a trial would be over.
Ooh.
Right?
Imagine if she were on trial, gets elected, and then convicted.
Yeah.
Can she pardon herself?
I don't know. Is there anything that prohibits a pardon of oneself?
Would she be sitting in Wentworth running the country?
No. She wouldn't be able to perform the duties. Therefore, whoever her vice president is.
Leavenworth, not Wentworth. That's the HBO show.
Yeah, whatever. I know what you meant.
I still go back to what you said months ago when we were talking about this. I think she cops a plea real quick. I think no matter what, her lawyer is going to look at this and say, cop a plea, hope for a misdemeanor, and move on. There are still idiots that would vote for you. It's too late. I know I see Jersey Joe saying, they throw under the bus so Biden and Warren would step in. There's no time left for that. That time is gone.
if she gets the delegates, but then all of a sudden she's not eligible, where do those delegates go? The Democrats could not necessarily. Right?
Good point. Good point. So you may just get Joe shoved in. I don't think the country would accept Elizabeth Warren right now.
What if she ran as a vice presidential?
They
with
might take
Hillary,
that.
2 women.
No, I don't think that would be enough. I think there's enough crazy there in public where people would shy away from that. I think if they threw Joe in really quick and then threw Warren underneath him, which I don't know why he'd want that. I can make an ugly joke, but it's too easy. But the reality is, they're just out of time.
We're almost out of time. We still have 7 minutes. That's not what you're talking about.
So it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, this report is scathing, considering the source.
Right.
Considering the source, this is a scathing report. It really is. You have a leftist president, a leftist government, investigating a leftist Clinton. And it still shows her plainly in the wrong.
I just don't know how you cover this up because, more public records are to come out. Congress is going to conduct an inquiry, and they've been looking. You have to.
Right. You have to charge her.
This report, how could this Inspector General not come out with a report like this? They kind of did what it could, I think, in terms of not specifically accusing her of violating the law, but just of violating policy. So it stopped short, and it also kind of went back and said, oh, well, there were problems even before Hillary. So I think they did what they could.
To try to, but it's
politically,
still there.
But it's still there.
Right.
I think even they were like, we really can't just kind of make this one go away as much as we'd really like to.
That's like being the last person in on a group assault. And be like, well, everyone else was doing it. It doesn't make it right. You don't have to go in and do it that way.
Right. Everybody else just threw a punch, but you went in and threw a punch and a couple kicks and hit him with a lead pipe in the study. What?
By Professor Plum.
By Professor Plum. I was going to say with Miss Scarlet or Peacock.
So it's going to be interesting to watch. 5.5 months, as Agador is pointing out, till the next election. November's not far away.
Yeah, of course, Elijah Cummings, our favorite Democrat,
who
on the House Overkit Committee.
Emails
there's no proof of that. But he came out and said, well, the Inspector General.
There was emails.
No, yeah, as well, there got a couple. He came out and said, the Inspector General confirmed what we have known all along, that Secretary Clinton followed the practice of her predecessor when she used a personal email account. Republicans need to stop wasting taxpayer dollars singling out Secretary Clinton just because she's running for president. What a pimp.
You know what that... Yeah,
this guy, seriously, and I'm not saying
call
that...
him a pimp?
Yes, I did. And I'm not saying that because he's black for any of you freaking crazy leftists out there who's listening to this. This guy, I would hope that he would be actually concerned about having that classified information potentially out there and that her email server may have been hacked.
It's all about power.
And is that not more important than the D in your ass? I mean, next to your name?
Right.
Elijah?
Next to your ass.
On his... I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
So next to, yeah.
Right. He's a D.
Right.
He's a humongous D.
Yep.
He's a huge D. And his name's Cummings, which is even more bizarre to me. But we don't need to go there. So is the D Cummings? Or is the D? I don't know. All I know, he's
all over this Hillary case.
He's huge in the Democratic Party, so he is a huge D, just a tremendous D. And he's all over in Hillary's face, like defending her, you know,
shielding her from other attacks.
Right, yeah.
Well, listen.
I mean, the D's are all over Hillary. They are just all over her.
D's swarming Hillary.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yep.
The long and short of it, it's all about power. He's afraid to lose power in the White House, and he'll say whatever he can. He's a lying sack of shit, and we all know it.
Yeah.
So the fact that Elijah Cummings even gets a press conference is bizarre to me. Hey, really quick, just so everyone knows, like once Obama's out of the White House, they're not leaving Washington.
We knew that.
They're certainly not going back to Chicago because, well, it's a demilitarized zone. I'm sure the Secret Service was like, we can't protect you there.
You know what? That's got to be impossible because it's a gun-free zone, the whole city.
Right. So they bought a very, very small home in just a middle-class Washington neighborhood. Wait, let me rephrase that. They bought a 9-bedroom mansion in the Kalorama neighborhood of Washington, D.C., which is very affluent, very, very, very expensive.
Why do they get a big house?
The house is valued at $6 million. So for the guy who had no money, remember, I don't make a lot of money. Estimated rent on it would be $22,000 if somebody were to rent it per month.
Huh.
It has an au pair suite, which for middle class and people like you and I, that's just called a nanny or in-law apartment.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, they're just trying to eke by once they get out.
And look, they have to stay close to Washington.
They do, because that's how you retain power.
Oh, yeah.
Folks, that's it for the Sackheads radio show live in the SHR Media
That's a good
Network.
show.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it this evening.
Thank you, sir.
As always, I thought we had a fun time. We will be back next Wednesday at 8 in the Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. Make sure you check out all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, linked out, knocked
Wait,
on.
we're on Pinterest?
Knocked up, knocked off. I don't know.
Are we on Pinterest? Do we have a Pinterest page or an Instagram?
We don't have an Instagram.
We need an Instagram account to take pictures while we're doing the show.
But we don't do it in metric. We're Americans, damn it. Metric didn't... How many countries that use metric got to the moon?
So the Instapound.
So we need the Instapound.
That could have a completely different... That can have
was your nickname in high school, wasn't it?
Insta-inch?
Insta-inch?
Yes, it was. Because before they knew it, there was an inch in them.
Right.
We played this game called Just the Tip. Anyway, Sean, for you, it's the whole thing. But yes, for me, Insta-inch is just the tip.
This is my friend. They call him Tuna Fish Can. We will see you next week, folks.
Insta-inch.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work there too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best and late night conservative talk, Tackheads Radio.
Tack news. Tack news.
Radio.
Tack news. Tack news.
Radio.
The best late night conservative talk show in America. In America.
Into the silo.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.